Hello, and welcome to another solo episode of the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grosboll, and it's the end of the month, so time for another solo episode. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about today or this month, and I had a conversation this morning, which was perfect timing, giving me the idea for this month's solo episode. And as the title says, it is to share or not to share. And what I mean by that is, and it came out of this conversation that I had this morning talking about whether or not to share, whether it's with the people close to you, on social media, whatever, support groups, whatever, whether or not to share your diagnosis, what you're going through, or to, share on a podcast like this one. And it was a very interesting conversation. And I've had several conversations with people on both sides of the spectrum. So for me personally, when I was diagnosed, I told my family and I told just a couple of people who were very, very close to me. And for me, I didn't want to share it on social media and get a bunch of unsolicited advice from people that I barely knew who would feel the desire to tell me what I should or shouldn't do. People who did not have cancer, who had no place to say what they thought I should do because they were not in my shoes. And just, when you say something like, hey, I have cancer, for some reason, people just feel the need to tell you their horror stories. Like, okay, that's really going to make me feel better by you telling me about your brother's wife's grandmother who, died of breast cancer kind of thing. That's not really going to make me feel better. Plus, I was very overwhelmed by all the solicited advice. I had never had cancer before. I have no history of cancer in my family. I've known people who have had cancer, but it just wasn't really in my close sphere. So I was trying to get all the information that I could. I didn't want to hear from a bunch of people who were, going to tell me horror stories or whatever. And then once I told my family, then I decided that I had a select group of people on Facebook that I wanted to share with. And I went through, it took me, I don't know, an hour to go through and hand pick the people on Facebook that I wanted to share my post to. Now, once I think it was probably after my surgery, after my treatments, all of that, when I decided that I wanted to do something with what I experienced to be able to help other people, then I started sharing publicly and letting people know. And there were still a couple of people who decided they thought that they knew best and were going to give me all of this advice and what I should be doing and that what I was doing was wrong. And I am no longer Facebook friends with those people. But that's another story completely. But I wanted my experience to maybe be able to help others. And people started coming out of the woodwork once I started sharing. Like people were just messaging me on Facebook and emailing me with their stories of their own cancer experience. I was so honored that people felt that they could share with me what they went through and not hey, this is what you should be doing, or, this is what I did and I know everything. It was, hey, I just want to share my story. I see that you went through this. This is what I went through, as a point of connection. And that's where this podcast came from. Was I was so honored to hear all of these different stories that I figured that there would be other people out there who wanted to hear them as well. Now, I have met with some people who didn't want to tell anybody and didn't tell anybody. And I'm not here to tell you, hey, you should share with the world or you should share with nobody. I just want to give you a couple of different perspectives. So I was at a support group, and I may have mentioned this before, and there was a woman at that support group, and I was very grateful that she, actually came to a support group. It was her first time. And after the meeting, we were talking a little bit, and she said that her husband and her best friend knew about her cancer, and that was it. She hasn't told anybody else. And that's fine. I pass no judgment at all. Again, I was very happy that she came to this support group to at least be around other people who had gone through a similar experience. And she was probably 3/4 of the way through treatment, and still nobody knew. And the facilitator of the support group said something which I really loved. And I say this to people a lot as well, is that for every person that you share your story with, you become an advocate for getting awareness spread, getting information out, whether it is so someone will go and get a mammogram, whether it is for someone who will go to the dermatologist and get their skin checked. Every person that you talk to, that's just one more awareness spreading warrior on the planet. And she really kind of took that to heart. I don't know if she went home and shared with people what she was going through. And unfortunately, I have not seen her back at the support group. So I hope that she is doing well. And this woman that I was talking with this morning, she kind of put this in all areas of her life. So when she went through cancer, she really didn't share it with very many people. And she went through probably a long time of some mental health challenges because she wasn't sharing it. So she was going through it alone. And it was so hard for her. And when she finally started speaking out about it and sharing it, it really helped with her mental health. She knew that there were people out there who could be a support system for her. And then, when she got pregnant, she shared with the world that she was pregnant because she wanted people in her corner. She wanted people to cheer her on. She wanted people to share in all of that. And when you go through a cancer diagnosis and cancer treatment, and many people who have been on this podcast have talked about it, having a support structure around you, having people to pray for you if that's what you're into, or if that's what they're into. There are so many instances of the miraculous power of prayer. Just having people check in on you, see how you're doing, bring you a meal, come and walk your dog. Just having that support structure in your life to help you when you're going through what could be a devastating diagnosis is very, very powerful. Having people who can cry with you, having people who can love on you, who can recommend a great massage therapist or a great physical therapist who can help you post-treatment, or, there's so many things that we need going through treatment. Having people know what you're going through so they can help you can be very powerful for your mental health, for your emotional health, and even for your physical health. Knowing that you have people you can count on, knowing that you have people that you can reach out to, knowing that people are going to reach out to you and go, hey, how are you doing today? Do you need a hug? Do you need someone to come and get you out of the house and go for a walk with you. Those are very powerful for the emotional and the mental side of cancer. We talk all the time about the physical piece of it: treatments, surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, whatever treatment that you're going through. We talk about the physical piece. We talk about, getting your physical health back and stuff, but there's a huge mental and emotional component to this. Now, again, I'm not telling you to go out and spread it all over Facebook and, walk up to people in the grocery store and go, "Hey, I have cancer." If that's your jam, awesome. Share it with as many people as you want to. I just want to give you the other side for those people who don't want to share with anybody. And there's a stigma that can come from certain cancers. There's, the thing that, oh my gosh, I have breast cancer, and people like immediately look at your breasts. Or, I have lung cancer, and oh my gosh, like you smoked all your life, kind of thing. There are judgments that come with that when you just share with people on the street. But I just want you to, I guess my recommendation is just to look at it. And if you have that support structure and you are sharing with the people that you love and care about and that love and care about you, that's awesome. And if you choose not to share it with anybody other than your family members, that is also awesome. It's really what works for you and what you can handle. And it's very interesting that, and I think I've shared this before as well, like it was over a year after my diagnosis before I went to my first support group. And I have found in the support groups that I go to that there are people in there that are 5, 10, 20 years out from a diagnosis, and they didn't go to a support group for several years. And that's actually more the norm than people going while they're still in treatment or right after active treatment. Because a lot of people are like me, like I was, and it's like, hey, I'm done. I just want this over with and I want to move on with my life. I don't want to go back there and be around a bunch of other people who are going through this or who went through this. Like, I just want to get on with my life. And then down the road a piece, you discover, I think I want to have people like that in my life, or at least go somewhere where I can be around people who understand what I've gone through and I can be vulnerable and share. So there are lots of cancer support groups out there. There are support groups for everything out there. And I think that it's very important to be able to have someone or some place that you can feel comfortable enough to share. And so if you don't want to share, that's totally up to you. If you do want to share, that's totally up to you. And if you want to kind of pick and choose and only share with certain people, that's awesome too. I just wanted you to kind of see both sides of, hey, maybe by sharing your story, you can help somebody else who's going through this, who feels alone, who feels like it's the end of the world, and sharing what you've gone through can help them. Again, that's the whole reason for this podcast, is people sharing their stories in hopes to be able to help other people who are going through a similar situation. And if you think it's crazy that other people aren't sharing what they're going through, there are people who are very extremely private people. Okay, my daughter is one of those. She doesn't want people knowing what's going on in her life. Now, she doesn't have cancer, so I don't know how that would change if that were the case. And God willing, she never gets cancer. But she's very private and she doesn't want people knowing her business. And if that's you, perfect. I just recommend you at least have a couple of people very close to you that you can confide in. But if you don't want to share your story, like, don't let other people try and convince you to if that's not what you're comfortable with. So, as with everything else, there are multiple sides to all of these things, and you need to decide what's best for you. I just want to come on here and just give you both sides of a situation so that maybe you can think about and look at something a little different way than you were looking at it before. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you're enjoying the show. If you have any questions, or if there's anything that you want to hear about, or just give me your feedback on what you think of the show in general, I would love to hear that. Okay. So have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your month. Have a great life. I love you all. Bye-bye.